Hey everyone, welcome to Zero Calorie Marketing. Oops. Shaky table syndrome here. So, hey everyone, welcome to Zero Calorie Marketing. Today, I'm very excited to have a very special guest on who has flown all the way from Warsaw just for this. He's here from for a bunch of meetings. 4 a.m. start.
Yeah.
So we got to give Freddie a bit of a break. So firstly, Fred, I just want to introduce you to our guests. Hello, everyone who's watching and listening. I hope you like this new setup. Usually we're in a different place. So today we're in for a treat because we're not in a basement. We are in a nice location, which Freddie will say yes to.
Yes.
So Freddie is the co-founder of Embargo, which is the UK's #1 loyalty and CRM platform, helping coffee shops, quick service restaurants connect with key customers to drive repeat business. So that's the research I did, but I want Freddie to introduce himself. So Freddie, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so great to be here today. I mean, I've been in London for the past 11, nearly 12 years. Currently, however, splitting my time between London and Poland, given that we have been expanding the business over the past couple of years to Europe as well. Yeah. We found Central Eastern Europe being an extremely savvy market, huge market, growing in every direction. Hence, I was there today, or I came from there today. But yeah, who am I? I'm one of the co-founders of Embargo, as you mentioned. We built a loyalty CRM platform, a sort of multi-product actually solution for any size businesses in hospitality. And my background is hospitality. When I moved to London when I was 19, I worked for Joe and the Juice, but there was the time where they only had 4 locations in London. So early days. It was meant to be just a sort of side job. Ended up being something I'm truly passionate about till today. I ended up running multiple other venues, brands in hospitality thereafter. So yeah, it has become my lifestyle. And after that started Embargo, a tech platform which is supposed to support these businesses, which I'm sure we can talk about later as well.
Of course, just 1 second.
Yeah.
I was just making sure that we're recording. So this is what happens when Natalia's not here. So Natalia, please get better soon so you can come and do this. Natalia is usually the person who's behind the scenes. She's never been on camera yet.
The mystery.
The mystery, yeah. So we know, we've seen her hand, we've seen her voice, but we just don't see her in action. If you are watching Natalia, please come to work on Monday at 10 a.m.
Please.
So the first thing I wanted to ask, how we were introduced was through Nick, who was guest number 3 for season 6 or season 5, I can't remember. He actually recommended us, and he actually told me about your story of how you had to pivot your business and how you had to make quick changes, and the journey that you've been on so far. So could you tell us a bit more about how that actually ended up, what happened, how you survived, and what the main learnings that you've gained from that has been?
Yeah, I think to give it a bit more context as well, I would even go slightly further back, the whole story. So when me and my business partner, we thought about Embargo, it was really first realizing a problem or some sort of a gap in the market. That was already 2016, 17, where we were thinking about this. I mean, that was still before we actually properly launched this. But what we realized is that hospitality is one of the biggest consumer-facing businesses in the world industries. I was obviously taking a very active part there, running several businesses. And it felt like, it's as consumer-centric as retail, as airlines, as hotels, as, any of these huge industries. And as I said, hospitality is one of the biggest ones. But then if you're a consumer-centric business, obviously all you should be focusing on is customers, selling to customers, but marketing to customers. But the only way you can do this is to actually know who your customers are, how many of them return, how many don't return, how do you engage with them, how do you communicate with them, how do you own that relationship, enhance it, and sell more. Otherwise, you're leaving a lot of things to chance. Obviously, product, working on your product, which in hospitality situation is obviously your food, your drinks, your ambience, your venue design, your branding, everything. That's your product. But at the end of the day, the product in any consumer-centric business is often not enough. So we always saw there's this need, and we obviously saw airlines like BA having a very strong whole department, which is obviously BA Miles, that is not just a loyalty system, but if you were to ask really someone from BA Miles and told them, oh, you guys are just this loyalty system, right? They would probably be quite offended, because they've built this powerhouse of data, CRM, like they know everything about their customers and how to engage with them, how to speak to them, how to upsell things, how to retain them, etc. Because that's why they built this. They didn't do this to just give an upgrade or a free flight. If so, they could do what still a lot of hospitality businesses do, just give them a paper card, right? A stamp card. But they really understood the power of data behind that system, and I think we started understanding this, but I was at that point very much more into bars, restaurants, and more, let's say, evening venues, because that was sort of the last experience I had before starting Embargo. So we first started testing that solution more for these sort of type of venues. And I think, we met Nick actually not long before the pandemic, who then obviously became a shareholder, he's part of our advisory board as well. And he obviously also agreed that there is a big need for solutions for any size business, because hospitality is 70% small, medium businesses. And I mean, small, medium doesn't mean just one location. That's also groups. But, the McDonald's, the Starbucks is actually minority. And obviously they have the money to spend millions like BA, let's say, or Hilton or Marriott on their solutions. But 70% of the market doesn't have it. And if they try to do this, it usually ends up being a failure sooner or later when they try to do this internally. So we realized we have to build something that is really powerful, scalable, that doesn't, that really helps the business, doesn't just, bring them another hurdle in the service and operations, but really enhances the understanding of data marketing and loyalty. So, but what we obviously realized the moment where we suddenly started getting some traction, started to understand a little bit better how this could work for the industry. We spent, a long time really testing the market, working directly with a lot of bar managers, owners, directors, etc., to really understand, how to build this. We started also signing up more coffee shops and quick service restaurants around the same time. And then when we felt like, I think we onto something, we started, actually monetizing that business and then started getting some traction. This is where COVID hit. It was, I think it was like 5-6 months later, I can't remember now, but like, not many months after we actually started, generating revenue and monetizing the business, and realized, okay, I think we were ready to start working on it in terms of, building a revenue traction, not just trying to find a product market fit. Then COVID hit, and obviously that shut down all the bars, all the clubs, all the sort of evening restaurants. But interestingly, already before that, we started realizing more and more that it's actually the sort of casual dining, the sort of grab and go concepts, the coffee shops, the bakeries, the quick service restaurants. They are the ones where building loyalty is, and building like a community marketing strategy is probably the most powerful. Not saying that other type of venues shouldn't, focus on that, but I think we saw the biggest traction and the fastest adoption among these businesses. Simply put, because if you think about yourself or anyone listening, if you think about your favorite coffee shop, bakery, or let's say your favorite Pokeball brand or whatever, you can
love Pokeballs.
There you go. Shout out to Honey Pokey, one of our customers.
You're not supposed to have favorites.
Yeah, true. Just had the lunch today though, so thank you for saving me. If you think about those venues, you can totally imagine yourself going there several times a week, right? Like this sort of venues, the quick lunch place, the bakery, the coffee shop. So if we launch a solution as a tech solution there, we really don't need to wait long and to start seeing numbers, to start seeing traction, to show and prove to the business, hey, this is working. Look, this is really, really working. we can totally see numbers within the first weeks or couple of months. Whereas if you were to implement this into, a slightly more high-end restaurants or a cocktail bar, their loyalty is built throughout the year rather than throughout the month.
Yeah.
So it's totally fine, and we actually had some great case studies with that. But given the nature of hospitality, where everything often is last minute because of how overloaded the teams are. I mean, again, I've been on that side. I know there's always not enough staff. There's always less people in the, say, marketing operations team that probably should be. So there's not always that much time for planning, waiting, or let's set up this 1-2 year project and see if it works. Like, not many businesses can afford that to wait so long. So you meet with that impatient setup, and we're already feeling this, and we're like, okay, we're growing, but I think we can grow even faster on QSRs, coffee shops. But we're still debating it, because we felt like we already signed up so many bars, like we already build a lot around them. But then COVID hit and almost forced us to actually rethink it and go, you know what? I think this is the time where we can really focus on who is our ideal client profile. Who will be those, first 100 or 1,000 raving fans who will not just sign up, they will tell everyone about this. And I think this was the pandemic where we sort of took some time, could really analyze everything, because, the first few months, couple of years where we're just testing, it was, going 100 miles per hour, not much time to reflect on things. And we realized, and that was the time where we had to go, okay, who's going to be open first of all? What's going to be quick service restaurants? Anything you can do for takeaway. And actually, these are ideal client profiles.
So we refer to Nick. Nick isn't just any Nick. He was the co-founder of Design by Night.
Correct.
And he exited, and he's starting a company called Trumpet, which is very interesting too.
And invested, and I think he has now 50-something startups in his portfolio.
He's a big investor, and for him to actually take, vote for your business, and that's like almost like a very, very good investor to have, because he knows forgive my French, he knows his shit, right?
Yeah.
And for someone like that to come in, how, just out of interest, how much, how involved is Nick within is he always there? Could you tell us a bit more about what it's been like to work with Nick?
Well, I mean, he's obviously very busy, and I think you cannot expect, any of your shareholders that aren't part of your day-to-day team to run your business. So, it's not like
he's hands off.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's got his own business, he's got a whole portfolio. So, but I think it's more that if there are things that I would love to discuss with him, bounce back ideas, I guess pick his brains using his experience when building a SaaS platform for hospitality. He's done it before, obviously different times, slightly different audience, but still, I think that's always super important and super useful. But I also think there is always the fact where it's sometimes that sort of 1-2 intros that will be absolutely key, and I think that's why it's good to surround yourself with the right people.
I mean, it's like, if let's say you start a SaaS business, Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg invests in your company. It's that kind of level of expertise who's kind of said, okay, there's something here. So that's and that's how I kind of got to know you. So that's really good. I know you kind of touched on this before, but could you tell us a bit more about, how your experience helped you approach marketing Embargo? So you essentially are solving the problems that you had when you were with Joe and the Juice and the other quick service restaurants or takeaways that you were at. But how did that experience teach you how to market to these guys and get their attention? Yeah,
so interestingly, after, Joe and the Juice was first, like the sort of first job. Then I ended up being more involved in more late night sort of evening type of businesses, and I ended up being head of marketing there as well. And the way, and some of that experience, I think, influenced how I'm thinking about marketing today. Not only that, but partially. What I realized is that at that point, I felt I don't really have many tools to do marketing. I pretty much didn't have a database of data that is actionable, that I can really use and understand, and then they can have impact. So I felt like, my marketing possibilities were quite limited, but I tried obviously with our product to empower any size business to do much more with that, to actually be able to market to customers, and how this impacts us. Then I think we have the same approach. As I strongly believe that if you do marketing without actually knowing who your customers are, really understanding their needs, not just based on what you feel that they want, but actually being able to use some sort of data or a little bit more than just your intuition, I think it's not the best way to spend time and money. So we actually had done pretty much only sales. So we have, over the last several years, we've barely done any paid marketing. And the reason being is that first, throughout the pandemic, there was no point, because it's constantly, open, close, lockdown, not lockdown. You never knew what's going to happen, so there's no continuity. But we also wanted to establish a sales process that gives us a lot of data on who that ICP really is. We sort of thought at that point, okay, it's coffee shop, bakeries, quick service restaurants, but let's actually see, let's go to the market, let's start focusing all our attention on those and start selling to them, but more outreach, so that we can quickly get to know the feedback. The feedback loop is much faster, obviously. It was still small scale, so like, the founder of Airbnb, Brian Chesko, he says, do things that are unscalable first and then scale them. And that was a little bit that. I would literally, throughout the pandemic, I invested in a little e-scooter, and I would literally go around venues that were open, and I would chat them up and be like, hey, would you like to join? Up until the lockdown is lifted, we'll do it for free, but I would love your feedback. I would love this. I would love to understand how we can build this further. I had a very quick feedback loop, right? Whether it was, leave me alone, or actually this sounds amazing, and that's how I found a lot of these, I would say, raving fans throughout that time. And then my approach to marketing was exactly this: like, okay, let's get to know them first. Let's then build a sales process. We then started hiring eventually people after lockdown. We grew a lot, and I can then actually tell, okay, what type of venues are my ideal client profiles? What are the different segments within those clients, and what do they usually care about, or what do they actually don't care about? What are the reasons why they join, but also what are the reasons that some don't join? I can actually understand this, and then further down the line, whilst I'm doing this, I have obviously customers that are building up some case studies, and I get some testimonials, I have some use cases, proof of concept. So I actually almost only now feel like equipped enough to go, now we can start doing marketing. We can do some cool Instagram probably content. We can. I want to focus a lot probably over the next, from this year, a lot on product marketing as well, and focus on the key elements of our constantly evolving product or multi-product solution to enhance the key things that we found that are important for those customers in the market. So it's not just blindly shooting with content and with whatever comes to our mind. Is like, okay, let's first understand who our customers are. And we almost try to say the same to our customers. It's like, before you start spending money on, social media campaigns, some events, influencers, and all of that, these are all powerful tools. But first, start from the basics. Understand who your customers are. Start communicating with your key community that drives 80% of your business, your regulars, right? People who are your raving fans, people who pay your bills ultimately. And only then, once you understand this, once you build that community, use them as your proof of concept, use them as your, huge amount of data that gives you the possibility to then build campaigns to scale this. Wow. So it's almost like a startup finding product market fit. You first find product market fit before you start sponsoring Champions League or do, Super Bowl ads, right? It would be silly if you don't know yet what your customers actually want. So that's my thinking of marketing.
So essentially, there's an element of you which had this gut feel because you worked in the industry, but there was also this shoe leather kind of cost where you actually literally went around to your customers and actually got to really know them. And the other part is the data that you got, and you're able to kind of really find more and more of these kind of...
Absolutely. I think, and it's interesting because a lot of my sort of gut feeling or my experience was actually wrong, or maybe not wrong, but not entirely true. And this is exactly because even whilst being head of marketing at a venue, because of the limited tools, or even if the tools were there, but they weren't that easy to use or very friendly, I didn't know that, and that's exactly, other very important piece of data that we try to share with our customers is start analyzing, which obviously our tool shows you, how long does it actually take a customer to return, and how does the data change throughout the years, months, or whatever. Because the problem sometimes isn't that, let's say you set up a coffee shop, a bakery, or a quick service restaurant group. The problem isn't that, Freddie might not return. The manager will see, so, oh yeah, Freddie still visits us. Yeah, I saw him the other day. Like, it's not about that a lot of customers churn. The problem is that sometimes what you have, and this is how businesses die, is that the Freddie that used to grab lunch with you twice a week now grabs lunch twice a month with you. You can't possibly visually remember this with, heaps of customers, different shifts, like, busy throughout the service, whether he's visited you 4 times this month, 8 times, or once. You just remember, oh yeah, he was there lately, right? One of many other customers you need to rely on to pay your bills. So this, what we're showing is actually the small things that decide whether you make it or you completely break it. No restaurant just shuts overnight because they messed up one menu. It's not how it works. It's usually a continuous trend and pattern that shows you that, okay, your customers are visiting less and less often, or there's a little drop off. What we found as well, that some of the most successful businesses we work with actually rely a pretty big part of the revenue, substantial revenue, on a few hundred of people per location. If you think about, let's say it's 500 people. It's a small coffee shop, a bakery, or whatever. Now, if throughout the year, you're 52 weeks, you lose 3-4 of these customers a week. I mean, you wouldn't visually even realize that. Throughout the year, if you lose these customers with 500 who are absolutely key, you're probably going to start losing money.
You'll start feeling it on the bottom line.
Eventually, yes. And then you go like, something's gone wrong, right? But that's the thing. If you don't have that data, and look, just data won't solve it either, right? I think it has to be a perfect combination of some of your gut feeling, your skills, but there has to be some base of it. It's almost like, let's say in football, right? It's almost like trying to judge someone's game by watching the highlight reel on YouTube. I mean, it's a nice feeling, right? You get a feeling, but this is not the reality. You really need to dig in deeper, and I think this is so key. And I'm trying to always tell people, whoever even wants to think about marketing, whatever business they do, is start from the basics. Do the homework first before you start actually marketing, because if you don't do this, that's how you look. You might be lucky and you might just hit it, but that's not scalable.
Okay.
So yeah.
No, I completely get you. Next up, so there's obviously patterns where you can say, okay, someone's dropped off, we need to do something about it. But I want to kind of flip it around. What challenges do hospitality companies typically face with their loyalty programs, and how can let's say there's a coffee shop owner or someone who's actually running a small business, what can they do to actually get David or Brian or Jane or Emily, male and female, to maybe come back 3-4 times a week rather than 2 times a week?
Yeah. No, I think, the upside with hospitality is the fact that if you were to ask any hospitality manager and ask them, who are your most important customers, probably, 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 would say, oh yeah, it's my regulars. So there is a general understanding that building loyalty is absolutely key. The problem comes with the fact that a lot of people think loyalty is, oh yeah, let's just do a 10th coffee free or your 5th lunch free or whatever that is. That's not loyalty. That's an element of building a reward system. But building loyalty is a big piece of multiple factors coming in at the same time, which is obviously building a product that your customers love. Now, again, you can go with a gut feeling, you can be creative and hope it works, but if you have some data, if you can start analyzing what works, what doesn't, it obviously will accelerate this. You need to provide great service, so the product needs to be obviously great. That's obvious, right? If you have a terrible product, no one will buy it. Now, but the key thing is, how can you then have that product and put this on as many people's lips, or if they tried already, engineer the experience after they tried it. So how can you make sure that after they try the product and left, that you're not losing that relationship, that you can retain these customers, that you can slowly, for example, turn this, Emily, Jane, Alex, whoever, to, start visiting again, but then instead of visiting twice a week, 3 times a week, instead of buying just a flat white, buying a flat white and a sandwich every now and then. Perhaps also, if Emily, Jane, Tom, Alex have an office nearby, maybe telling, hey, look, you could also pre-order any catering if you ever need something from me. How can you actually have tools that allow you to have an overview of these key customers, build relationships, understand what they like, what they don't like, communicate with them, engineer more than just saying hello when they visit. So that relationship doesn't just end when they're at the till paying, and when they starts there and then ends when they leave. What can you do what can you do there? Now the challenges, however, with that is, and I think this is why so many businesses or most hospitality businesses have some sort of like a form of a loyalty card. And to me that's really bloody inspiring, because some people might say, oh, that's so that's so old school, that's so analog, that 2024 and we still have a gazillion of businesses handing out these paper cards. Yes, probably there is an element of that at the first glance, but to me it's more inspiring that, I don't think there's any other business or industry in the world where you could totally accept the fact that someone gives you a paper card, right? I mean, imagine boarding a BA flight and you hand out a card. I mean, it sounds so surreal, but in hospitality it isn't, which means that there is this, it's something that works. But it doesn't necessarily work. It's just that it doesn't. It ticks a few boxes, or it overcomes certain challenges that these businesses have. And now answering that question is, what are the challenges? The challenges are that the experience when in a venue is one of the most fragile, difficult, and hectic user experiences that you can think of. When you book a flight, you're sitting at home at your office. You're probably browsing, comparing. You have all the time in the world. When when you're buying on ASOS or somewhere on Zara online, you have all the time in the world. You're checking stuff. You comparing prices, whatever. When it's 8 a.m. in the morning on Monday, it's raining. You're already late for your Monday check-in call, and you're just running in to grab your coffee and your sandwich. This is not a relaxed experience.
Yeah, and it's pre-coffee as well. So
yeah. So, but what I'm saying is that it's a very difficult experience to suddenly implement something around that, because when it's all online, when you book things, when you do this, there's a lot of touch points where you can capture data, where you can suddenly do more than just quickly stamp that card, right? Because you have a member of staff that is probably stressed because there's a rush hour. And, it's also someone who then maybe works part-time and already thinks about the exam because they do this alongside their uni, right? Then there is this queue of 20 already late and stressed out people. And then there's a manager who is pissed off that, some prices went up again. So it's a very hectic environment. Now, so the stamp card is easy, just go and stamp. So that's why we're in a position like this where a lot of people think that's loyalty. This is not loyalty. This is a reward. Now, the challenge is here: how can you implement technology in such an experience? How can you create touch points that allows you to capture some data? How can you find a balance between getting as much valuable data as possible, but without overkilling it, so there's no adoption? And then how on the back of that, and that's the first part. Now, how on the back of this can you build a system that then gives this, management, who is usually overloaded, understaffed, usually not necessarily had the chance to, be trained how to use, CRM systems, data systems. They're not very often trained marketeers, even in businesses which are much bigger than multiple locations. Like I've dealt with businesses that have 10, 15, 20, 30 locations, and the marketing team is a lot of people who work their way up from being a coffee shop manager a few years before. So they're learning on the job, and they're very overloaded. So how can they build a system then again is very easy to use, that gives you this actionable data, that turns that raw data that you create from these touch points into something that can impact your revenues? And I think these are the challenges, because 70% are small, medium businesses. They're not the Starbucks that have millions to spend. It's people who have to act fast, make quick decisions, have very limited time to use tools like this. So how can you make it work? And how can you make it work that works for the owner, it works for the manager, it works for the member of staff, and for the consumer? Everyone needs to be happy.
So really quickly, how do you actually go about you collect lots of data points. How do you make it actionable? Like how do you serve up the information to different stakeholders, for example? I mean, in a coffee shop, it could just be like literally three people, the owner, maybe the manager, and then maybe the person serving the till. How do you make your data so easy so that everyone in these people kind of get something from it?
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, it will be different for any type of business we serve, because we serve, chains, but not Starbucks and McDonald's level chains, but we also serve, single coffee shops or restaurants. So it really depends. I mean, if we work, let's say, with a holding company that owns X amount of food courts and shopping malls, obviously there is a whole team, so they almost have certain parts of the system that is pretty much built for the use of them, and then there will be those cases which you mentioned where there's the owner who is also the manager and the barista and whatever, and they operate 2-3 locations, let's say. But yeah, it's about, then we actually focus a lot on approaching the same framework when building the app, making it very easy to use, as simple as it gets from a user staff perspective, but to do the same for people who then need to look at that data and use it. And I think we again approached it in a way that you can look at this and do a lot within a few clicks, and then if you really want to take more time, you can dig in deeper. But again, it's those layers of sort of complexity, depending how deep you want to go. But today, if you were to open up a coffee shop tomorrow, launch our system, you could literally spend 5 minutes a month, because you can look at the data and see, great, I have X hundreds of regulars, 20% have not been back in the last 2 months, right? However, the frequency of my customer visits have, let's say, doubled. Now, I need to retain these customers who haven't been back for a while. Plus, I'm launching a new menu. Like, these are the obvious things you sort of would love to know, and you can see this right away when you look at the system. And then within 2-3 clicks, you can even do this from your phone, not even from your desktop. You can go, great, I want to send a message or email to everyone who's been 5 times in my venue, has not been back in 2 months, and say, oh, hey, a promo code, we miss you. Here's a free coffee, visit us by end of this week. And then another message campaign to those who've been already 30 times in my venue, and we tell them, hey, we're launching a new menu this weekend. Because you are, super value client, here's a 30% off your first branch, right? Wow. So again, you can do this within a few clicks. So think of it almost like what Starbucks has built over 10, 15 years, or however long they've been building their own solution, which is the app, the CRM, the data. I mean, it's a whole separate department, ultimately, like a company. It's a tech company now, right? Yeah.
I think Starbucks is the biggest bank in terms of the money people.
Yeah, because they really nailed the prepaid bit, right? But McDonald's, Pret, Starbucks, they all spend these like huge amounts of money on that, right? And some really a long time building this, adjusting this. Now, we come to any size business and say, hey, you could do this and you can launch this in 2-3 days. Obviously, there will be certain functionalities which you might not use yet, but there's a lot of stuff where they go, wow, like I never thought I could be doing this.
Yeah.
And this is the wow moment. But at the same time, because we're now selling to bigger customers as well, we already have case studies of businesses moving from their own apps, from their own solutions they build to us, because they realize, you know what, I'm never going to be able to deliver this sort of product simply because I'm a hospitality business and I have a gazillion sites to look after, staff and everything. Whereas you guys work on that one platform 24/7, so you'll always provide a better system.
So it's almost like having a having an extra team member who's very tech savvy, who's able to actually take lots of things into account and actually suggest things for you to do.
Yeah, and make it super accessible for any entrepreneur, any size business. I mean, I don't know, it's a little bit of what maybe Shopify has done for e-commerce in terms of democratizing that you don't have to be Zara or H&M to run a e-commerce site. Like you and me, we can set up and start selling cups tomorrow and set up a Shopify with all the marketing tools, with all the loyalties, communication, data, payment. We can do this within, a day probably, right? So it's a bit like that. We're not an e-commerce, but in terms of the whole logic behind it, like how do you democratize that? How you give this to any size business to really empower them? And we've seen business taking our solution when they had 2-3 sites, and today they are 10, 12 sites, 13, or like Honey Pokey or something like, which is like 20 now or something like that. So it's like we like to be these partners. So cool. Yeah.
2 things, and I want to get into the rapid fire questions. Are there any outliers that you've seen? Some restaurants or some of your customers, like you thought, oh, this is very unexpected, And can you give us examples of something that maybe you hadn't anticipated that your customers have kind of learned from the data that you've collected?
Yeah, I think one. So I'm not sure if it's an outlier per se, because it's actually something that we see a lot across the platform. There's a lot of the entrepreneurs that we work with, some pretty established brands that operate multiple sites or whatever, or sometimes even single sites where you would have thought that manager knows everything because he's there every day. They always thought that they relied the business on thousands of people. It's like, we have so many regulars, and then data shows them that actually a huge chunk of their business comes from a few hundred of people.
Yeah.
And this is usually this like, wow, like I had no idea. And we always say it's both good and bad. And now why? It's good because this means that you can throw away all these, ads, campaigns, like trying to constantly look for new customers. That's not your business. You're not, a Michelin star restaurant or a touristy place that has to constantly fight for their new customer because, the customer that came yesterday probably will not come for another year or two or whatever, right? Or maybe never. You're a community-based business. So stop spending your time, your limited resources, whether it's time, money, whatever, on things that don't make a big difference. Your business is that community of a few hundred people. Now, what can you do with this? Grow this. So how can you add more people? How can you hook in more people to that community? Now, how can you make sure that community becomes your marketeer? How can you engage with them so they bring more of their friends, families, colleagues, whatever? Now, how can you make that community visit you twice as often? So as you said, like, what if that community, instead of coming on average once a week to your venue, starts visiting you twice a week? That could be a significant uplift in your revenue. How can you make sure they buy a little bit more? All these things, is this where you should focus your time, which is great because it's much cheaper than constantly trying to fight for new customers.
So another thing is, have there been any instances where maybe your customers looked at the data and they found, I don't know, they served 20 things, but then maybe 5 were the best sellers. They kind of dropped everything and just focused on 5, for example. I'm just thinking out loud here, but
I think what they definitely realize is not necessarily that, but what they realize is how to test as well different offers or rewards. I think this is also a misconception often, that when people, let's say, just use a paper card, and let's say they're a burger place and say, oh yeah, 10th burger is free. Now, you don't really think about this again because it's just there. You print it when you run out. Like it can't even capture data from you. You don't even know if it works or not. You just think it works because some people use it. But realistically, when you then move this into digital, you start realizing that people don't engage with this, because no matter how much you love this one burger brand, I mean, even if you were crazy about them and you have a burger every week with them, which will probably be a very small percentage of the regulars.
I'm one of those people, to be honest.
Yeah, but then you're waiting 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And you're one of the craziest regulars. Now, an average regular will probably buy 2 burgers a month. And that's actually pretty good, right? Or 3 burgers a month. So you're waiting still multiple months to get that roll. It's like it's such a far away thing. You can do potentially an 8th, 9th, 10 coffee, because your local coffee shop downstairs, you might visit 5 times a week.
Yeah.
So again, it's like understanding this, or people running offers, like, does this discount work, or this 2-for-1, or maybe it's better to do a voucher. Like, how to actually engage with customers and upsell and make these different setups work for you and create engagement. Because sometimes when there's no data, it's really hard to actually understand what works, what doesn't.
No, that makes sense. Last question, and this came in from a friend. Do you think it's important to have a marketing playbook like a sales one when exporting to other territories, or is localization more important? I guess this is in reference to the fact that you're kind of expanding across different countries, different regions, people have different tastes, that kind of thing.
I think it's key to have a playbook. And then once you have the playbook, you go with that, and then you start adjusting. When we launched, let's say, Poland, which is a major country for food and drinks. I mean, there's a reason why there are more multi-billion food delivery companies operating in Poland than in the UK.
Wow. Well,
because in the UK you've got obviously Deliveroo, Uber Eats, and Just Eat, right? These are the 3. In Poland you got Uber Eats, Just Eat, Volt, Bolt, and Glovo. You got 5.
Yeah.
Plus some local players as well.
So people love food in Poland.
it's a huge market, 38 million people. So, but anyway, when we moved there, we went with when we moved. I mean, when we launched, expanded there, we went with our same playbook, and then over time we started slightly adjusting. So what we found is most of it is pretty much the same, with just small changes, localization, and the same will be with marketing. It will. I mean, at least in our case, I think again maybe there's some business which will be different, but I feel like you think there will be huge differences, but there aren't as many. But those small differences will make a big difference, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And what I really like what you started off with, Freddie, where you say, if you know your customers, you've got a good product, then everything else just follows from there.
Exactly.
Because my restaurant, no matter how close it is, actually there was a place I lived in just down the road from here. They claimed it was the best steakhouse in London. It wasn't, because it was empty most of the time. And I felt really bad for them because they had such a good location. I tried it out once, but I thought, okay, this is just really bad. In terms of, sadly, I would love to give them my business because they were literally in the same building as me. My Wi-Fi connected, so I didn't even have to go on my network or data. But and the thing is, the location was amazing, staff were great, but the food just wasn't up to scratch. And I really like the fact that you actually did your literal leg work or mini scooter work and actually went around and actually got customer feedback. And I think that's an important lesson that we can all learn from your experience.
May I just add on this something? And I think this is no different to any I think startup that has been somehow successful. If you read the story of Airbnb and the famous, knocking on the door, like Brian Chesky and his co-founder were walking around and knocking at host doors, reaching out to the first guest and they were always asking about the 11-star experience. Don't ask your customers what they'd like to improve. Ask them what would make them tell everyone about this, because only then you can really get to the bottom of this. And I think there's many Deliveroo founder, he was at the beginning driving around and delivering food, so he was also trying to understand the whole experience. I think it's key, and I think it's good to do this as long as you can, as long as it's possible. Then scale it, and then go back to this and see how after scaling this after a while, does it still work? Don't forget. I think that's just the DNA that you should keep, the framework you should keep.
No, and I also I really like what you said earlier, where don't just export a broken model, or because if you haven't nailed that proposition or that MVP to start with, then don't go around actually scaling it, because you're actually just expanding this failure across.
Exactly.
And it's costing you lots of money. I want to get into some rapid fire questions, if that's okay, Freddie. Firstly, what are your 3 must-read books?
So first of all, it's a book that I was recommended by a basketball coach. I used to play basketball when I was a teenager. I actually got to a professional level. I'm not that tall, but I played top division in Europe as well. But that was a book that completely changed my life. It's called The Peaceful Warrior, The Way of a Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. It's a book. It's a biography of an ex-world champion in gymnastics. Super fascinating, life-changing. Hugely recommend. So Dan Millman, The Way of a Peaceful Warrior. Then I thought the book about Walt Disney, the American original, was absolutely mind-blowing. I think what was mind-blowing there is all his stories and struggles that he's gone through, and how he what was his framework to deal with them, but also the way his brain was working. It was just super, super exciting. And then the third one is probably an obvious one, but is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. And why I actually say this is because I remember at some point I was gifted this book 3 or 4 times. I think I had 3 or 4 of them on my shelf, and I wouldn't read it because I thought, it's probably just a self-PR thing. It's too hyped. I'm not interested. Not going to read this. It's probably just going to be a lot of fluff. And I couldn't be more wrong. It's just been fantastic read.
Yeah, Nick actually said the same book, actually. So I think he had a couple of other ones as well. Going in quickly to 3 SaaS tools that you cannot live without, except for Embargo, obviously.
Trello. We love Trello. A lot of things at our company work through Trello. Not sure how we would do it without it. it's probably an obvious one, but Google Suite I think is a fantastic tool.
They take away all your headaches, really.
Like and everyone from my team, whoever worked with me in some way, know that Google Calendar is something that I live by.
If it's not in the calendar,
it doesn't exist.
I just want a high five.
Exactly. That's why I appreciated when we were setting up this podcast that you right away put in the calendar. That's I like that. I respect that.
Yeah, because look, I knew that you were busy, and I just wanted to say, okay, I think I was out in a bar somewhere, and I was like, okay, let's just get this in, and I just got your email and I just sent it straight away.
It's key. I think there's a moment where you get so busy that the only way to live and manage everything is by removing any to-do lists and moving everything onto your calendar. Every task, every meeting, everything you plan, your whole day should be planned. Ultimately, even if you have to move something, you plans always change, but there are certain blocks you move away. Yeah. So you never forget this. So you almost try to clear things you have to remember and move them onto your calendar. And that's, I think, that's that. And we use Slack a lot, and Slack, I've been trying to evangelize everyone in the team as well to use it as much as possible, to avoid as much as possible basically use WhatsApp if it's very urgent. I think WhatsApp is still a good thing, but Slack is one. It's probably very obvious platforms, but we use them heavily. We're heavy users at Embargo.
No, I don't blame you. And every SaaS company that we work with, we usually become part of their Slack, so we kind of know what's going on. In short, would you have any advice for marketing professionals?
Yeah, I think the key element is what we cover later. It's almost when you work on a marketing project, or your job is to market something, ask yourself, does this project, this brand, whatever, really found product market fit? Part of your marketing job is to understand who your customers are, who your audience is, I usually put this way, understand what's your market? Is this market big enough for you to achieve your financial goals? Because marketing for the sake of marketing is a waste of time. Yeah. What are the actual monetary goals you try to achieve? Now, is the audience, the market big enough? Now, what part of the audience is your ICP, or deal and client profile, who will sign up the fastest, churn the least, recommend the most, find these true fans. Now, then try to understand them better. Try to find some, either by going and asking them or doing some research. There's many ways, and we don't have time to cover this, but really try to understand what makes them buy things or refuse things, and then add your creativity to it. So don't take any feedback or what people tell you, copy paste, because I'm not sure if that quote is real, but I like it, that apparently Henry Ford, when he asked what people wanted, they said faster horses. So this is where then the sort of, the genius part needs to come, I would say, or of that marketeer is okay, how can I now read this data, add my own creativity, my skill set, and sort of shape it in a way that it will work and achieve those goals. But find a product market fit before you start marketing out, basically.
So just find your product market fit to start with before you do anything else. So this is a bit of a tricky one maybe for you. If you were to open your own venue, what type of restaurant or quick service restaurant or takeaway or whatever it would be?
So I would ultimately, there's multiple concepts I have in my head, to be honest, especially after the last
Once
few
you've
years.
exited for a few $1 billion, what are you going to do?
That's the plan. So I would definitely open an all day, sort of like a cafe restaurant. What I found is that, we pay, as a restaurant owners, managers, whatever, we pay rent 24/7. But a lot of concepts only make money a few hours a day or a week. Think of a nightclub. A nightclub makes money a few nights within a few hours. That's 90% of the money. A coffee shop, there will be 2 rush hours probably where they move. And you know what? It can work. It can work amazingly well. I'm not saying these are bad concepts, by the way. But if you do this, you have to be very careful. Okay, what's the location you pick? What's the rent? What's really the money you can make? There's some restrictions there. Fine. If you nail this, it's a light, basically you know exactly where you have to focus on your staff and everything. You can do this. However, I strongly believe that a lot of those venues, if they came from day one with an all-day concept, they could maximize the time where they make money. The problem is when you sort of used to, let's be a specialty coffee shop, and then you suddenly try to like, now let's do evenings as well. I know some companies that manage to achieve this, but it's hard because in people's mind you're this morning coffee shop. But there's a few amazing concepts that they've nailed this whole day thing. But then imagine in the morning you can serve specialty coffee with some, breakfast, brunch food, which can, by the way, be served up until afternoon, with also takeaway options. So if people want just like your office lunch, basically, I mean, if you're already, let's say, serving some brunch food and salads, you can also serve incredible salads and reform them a little bit for takeaway.
Mm.
And then after work, just have a nice setup with a couple of, cool beers, a couple of wines. It doesn't have to be a huge offering, a couple of cocktails. So it doesn't necessarily require some, sommeliers and world-renowned, bartenders, but something very nice and light with a small menu in the evening where people can also come after work, grab a drink, grab a little bite. And I think, there's just so many revenue streams throughout the day for a venue that I think there are ways how to build this, and there are concepts like this, I feel, or there can be. Yeah.
Wow. So I'm going to take that idea.
Idea is just an idea.
It's just an idea. Will you fund my business? So Freddie, any final words that you want to leave our beautiful audience with?
I always say this, that no matter what you read, what you listen to, even whatever we spoke about today, never do copy paste. Never think that whoever else out there is 100% right. I think the best way is to be very open and take what's the best out there and make it better, basically. So add your genius, add your skill set, add your talent, add your creativity, add your experience, add your flair to it, challenge things that you listen to hear, and at the end of the day, your success will come whether how can you patch this all together. Get inspired and then make it better.
Come up with some ideas. How can people get hold of you if they want to get in touch?
So definitely find me on LinkedIn, Frederick Szydlowski. It's not an easy one to spell, but you'll probably have it online. Reach out on LinkedIn. I try to respond to almost every message. And if you're interested in anything when it comes to Embargo, or you're running a business, or your friends running a hospitality business, they would love to join. Head to our website as well, embargoapp.com. You can book a demo there. You can ask questions. Our team will definitely respond within hours, if not minutes. So
Wow. Thank you so much for joining us today, Freddie. I know you've got a flight to catch, so we're not going to keep you any longer. And all the best with Embargo, and I cannot wait to see what you do with it.
Thanks, it's been a pleasure. Cheers.
Thank you. Well, thank you for watching, and please be sure to like and comment or follow, or maybe even, like, if you're watching this on iPod Visions, I don't know what they're called. Hello. I'm a bit taller than I look like on camera, but that's it. So please join us next week and check out some of the previous episodes too. And it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Freddie.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
All right.